Good morning, one and all. This is Dr. Diana. Welcome to session 33 on modern software engineering. So, we started with a guided tour on what modern software engineering is and what agile development methods are, and then we moved on into the first level of principles, which are refactoring, test driven development, and pair programming. So once we looked into the basic principles of agile, before we moved into the higher order principles, we started with a picture dictionary of some of the keywords in agile development. So in our first session, in our previous session of keywords and picture dictionary, we have seen 4 different words, and today we are going to see another 4 different keywords in agile terminology. The first one is real customer involvement, iteration demo. The third one is reporting, and the fourth one is bug free release. Each of these will become 10-mark questions in your final examination. So we will be looking into some pictorial representation of these and how to explain all of these words, because software engineering as such is a vague subject and it is more theoretical in nature. So there is a lot of abstraction that is required when you try to understand software engineering as such, and it also requires some imagination and creativity. So as we move on into agile, we still have a little more work to add upon that. So this picture dictionary, I hope it helps you understand and prepare in an exam oriented way. Now the first keyword for today is real customer involvement. In agile development, we see that there is an on-site customer always available in the development space. Whatever they want, they tell as a feature required in the software. That is what is developed by the agile development team. So every time the development team starts working on something, it is suggested by the on-site customer. So it is expected that the on-site customer has real good knowledge of what is required by the client. Now, based on the degree of customer involvement, the software is divided into multiple categories. So if you can see, we see a horizontal market software on top, and we have the personal development at the lowest level. Now in real customer involvement, these are the 5 different categories into which the software is, or the development of software is categorized based on the customer involvement. Now on the right, if you can see the arrow there, it indicates that towards the personal development, the involvement of the customer in the software development process tends to rise high, and in the horizontal market it is very low. So depending on the degree of involvement of the customer in the development, we have divided our software into 5 different categories, from personal development, in-house custom development, outsourced custom software, and vertical market software and horizontal market software. In personal development, the customer involvement is highest, and in horizontal market software, the customer involvement is lowest. That is the understanding of this picture that we see. So when you are asked in your examination of what real customer involvement is, you should be able to explain that the software is divided into 5 categories based on the involvement of the customer, and what are the 5 different types in software categorization. In extreme programming, on-site customers are responsible for choosing and prioritizing features. Now imagine I have an attendance software to be created for my organization. I give it to a extreme programming team. In that case, one of the faculty from my college will go and sit along with the development team and be with them throughout the development. That is the extreme programming strategy. One of the on-site customer is available in the development space throughout the development of the software. So whatever that person says to the software development team, only that the development team will develop. So if I say I want a page for marking attendance, they will develop that. If I say they want a page for viewing attendance, they will develop that. So whatever the customer says, that they will develop, and they will not be able to understand what is the customer's workplace. So whoever goes as an on-site customer, whoever goes into the development space, they have to educate the developers on what exactly is required. So they should have the knowledge of what is important for the organization, and they should be asking for those features from the software developers. So the value of the project is in the hands of such on-site customers. This is a very big responsibility, because you should be able to understand what is important for your organization. So depending on how much they are available at the development space, we have divided our software into 5 categories. The first one is the personal development, and then we move on into in-house, outsourced, vertical and horizontal based on the customer involvement. Personal development has highest customer involvement. Now when we look into personal development, it is more like a software for our own selves that we ourselves develop. So imagine the attendance software is required for computer science department of SPEC. In that case, SPEC themselves will design their own attendance software. That is called as in-house, or that is called as personal development. What I want for my team, I develop myself. So in personal development, the development team is its own customer. They are developing the software for their own use. As a result, there is no need to involve external customers in the team. The team is its own real customer. So it's like a attendance software developed by CSC department for CSC department only. Now the second form of customer development involvement is in-house custom development. It is where the development team develops a software for the entire organization. Imagine SPEC CSC department creating an attendance software for entire SPEC. That is a in-house custom development. So in-house custom development occurs when your organization asks your particular team to build something for the organization's own use. It may include writing a software to streamline operations, automations for the company factories, or producing reports or accounting, or any of these categories. Now an example I told was development of attendance software for the entire college by CSC department. In-house custom development makes it easy to involve real customers because they are really accessible. The best approach is to bring your customers into your team to turn your real customers into on-site customers. So if I want to work as a team, I should involve people from other departments also joining in my team during the development phase. That becomes in-house custom development. Now the next form is called outsourced custom development. In that case, SPEC wants an attendance system. SPEC is not able to develop. In that case, I ask an external software development company to develop an attendance software exclusively for SPEC. So it is tailor-made for SPEC. Nobody else can use that. That way of development is called as outsourced custom development. Outsourced custom development is similar to in-house, but you may not have connections that an in-house team does. As a result, you may not be able to recruit real customers and act as the team's on-site customer. So one from SPEC will not be going and sitting in the software company all the time. So that is the idea behind outsourced custom development. The next level is called as vertical market software. Vertical market software is a software that is developed for one particular domain. So attendance marking is in engineering college is one particular domain. A company might come up with a software helping all the colleges working under JNTU to market attendance. So if they deliver that product to spec, they will make changes here and there, add spec logo, all these little adjustments they will make and give that software to us, and we can purchase. So it is not a software dedicatedly made for spec, but it is a software developed for the entire set of colleges, engineering colleges affiliated to JNTU, because they have the same pattern of attendance marking system. So such a software development is called as vertical market software. Imagine what level of customer involvement we will have in developing such a software. It will be very, very less. So when we talk about vertical market software, unlike custom development, vertical market software is developed for many organizations. Like customer development, however, it is built for a particular industry. Here it is built for all the colleges affiliated to JNTU, and it is often customized for each customer. Just like how we add our own college logo, it can be adjusted here and there to specifically suit our needs. But be careful about giving real customers too much control over the market software. So if I go and keep changing my software for every client, it becomes a very hectic process. So you might not be able to accommodate all the changes required by all organizations. So you should be very careful about that. The next level of customer involvement is called as horizontal market software, in which you don't interact with the customer at all. It is a branded product, just like imagine Tally. Tally is a software that is used by all. They don't look into who their customer is. They look into the government's tax policies and frame the software like that. So the customer does not have any chance for modifying the software as per their requirements. If you use Tally, you just buy the software and use, and the development team does not have any interaction with the real customer. Such a product is called as horizontal market software. Horizontal market software is the visible tip of the software development iceberg. Software that is intended to be used across a wide range of industries. As a horizontal market developer, your organization may have the close ties with customers that the vertical market does. So we will not have any communication with the real customers. Now this gives 5 different levels of software development, or 5 categories of software development based on the customer involvement. Now the second keyword we will look into is called as iteration demo. Now what is an iteration in agile development? In agile development, when we try and contrast with the traditional approaches, the major change is that we deliver something very frequently to the client. So every 2 weeks in extreme programming, we deliver a tangible outcome to the client. Now when we do so, before giving it off to the client, it has to be demonstrated to the client and then given to the client. That is called as an iteration demo. This period of 2 weeks in which we develop and then deliver something is called as an iteration. In extreme programming, it is called as iteration, and in Scrum development, it is called as a sprint. Both sprint and iteration mean the same thing. Now this is how a iteration demo or a sprint review looks like. So we will have external customers, internal stakeholders, the team members, and other people also will be joining in the iteration demo. We will have a list of the iteration goals or the objectives that we set for the iteration, and what are the iteration or the sprint backlogs, what we are not able to complete during this iteration and what we are able to complete. That is indicated as the potentially shippable increment. So these are what we will have. Now in the iteration demo, we will overview all of this we will demonstrate all of this, and we will discuss on what we missed during this iteration development. Whatever we missed, we will have to adapt in the next iteration. So once you present your development for this particular iteration, we will see what we have not completed, and based on that we will plan for the next iteration. So the outcome or the product or the outcome of this iteration demo would be a groomed product backlog, a list of all prioritized work that we did not complete in the previous iteration. Based on that, we will have an updated release plan. We will say when we will be able to release the software and when we will be able to complete all of these backlogs. So this is the basic overview of an iteration demo or a sprint review. Both mean the same thing. So an iteration demo is continuously building a learning and improvement on the work. It is demonstrating and celebrating the hard work of the entire team. And to keep the team highly motivated, iteration demo is very important. So at the end of every iteration, the entire team meets to reflect on the iteration. Now, how to conduct an iteration demo? Invite everybody who is interested in taking part of the demo, and the entire demo should be 10 minutes. It can extend up to 30 minutes and not more than that. You can calmly describe the problems what you faced during this iteration in development, and you can tell others how you handled those problems. You can describe the features scheduled for the next iteration and their value in the entire project. So an iteration demo will include this list of stories which are in progress, which are not yet started, and which are completely done. So you can see that on the left side chart there in the picture. Now in the iteration demo, people will sit, discuss on all of these things, and then find out what to do next. So there are two important questions which are to be asked in the iteration demo. The first one is our work satisfactory till date? Are we going in the right track? Are we going in the right speed? Are we doing the right things? So this is the question. First question. The second question is, can we continue doing the same thing or should we change something? So these two are the important questions to be raised during an iteration demo. This will help us become more efficient in the next iteration. Now these questions keep the project on track and remind your stakeholder to speak up if she is unhappy. Now there will be stakeholders also will be present during the demonstration. If we are not on the right track or if they are not satisfied, we can allow them to speak so that we can rectify our development and then produce a better outcome in the next iteration. Now you should be communicating well with your sponsors, and her answers are never a surprise. So if they say that they are not, the software is not working as expected, you should also be aware of that. It should not come to you as a surprise during the iteration demo. So that level of planning is required. An inability to demo is a clear sign of danger. If you are not having something to demonstrate by the end of an iteration, then it is a sure sign that you are lagging somewhere. So this iteration demo happens once in every 2 weeks. By the time you complete one iteration, it reflects on the previous iteration on what is completed and what is not completed, and it gives you the guidelines of what to be completed in the next iteration and allows you to plan for your next iteration. The next keyword or the third keyword we will be looking at is called as reporting. In an online software, in an agile development, we understand that there are multiple teams who will work parallelly in the software development. When that is the case, it is highly likely that everybody has got some idea of the project, and it is not necessary that everybody has the same understanding or the same perspective. Imagine we are developing a attendance marking software in the agile scenario. Each team starts with its own software module, and every team picks up one module and they started developing. By the end of that particular completion, all of them should be able to integrate their code and then form the complete software. If communication was not correctly maintained between teams, we will not be able to completely integrate all of these products or all of these modules. So a formal way of giving this communication is called as reporting. Reporting helps us to understand what our team is doing. It helps us convey that information to the other teams and to the management. So this form of communication helps the entire team to work towards the same goal, and it also allows in comfortable integration when each of us complete our task. So there are two types of reports that can be maintained. One is called as a progress report. The other one is called as a management report. Now a report, when is a report required? Because we all have informative workspaces, our progress and what we are doing, what we are not doing, what are we in progress, what have we completed. All of this is available on the informative workspace. But not everybody is aware of that. Maybe the team members are not aware, but the management is not aware of that. So our idea is to project the same thing to the management. So we are going to follow a formal reporting strategy to convey this information to the management also. Or management indicates both the sponsors, the stakeholders and the clients. So all of them have to be informed of what my progress is. So the first form is called as a progress report. A progress report reports on the progress of the team, such as the iteration demo or the release plan. Although progress reports seem to exist so that stakeholders can monitor and correct the team's direction, that is not their purpose. Instead, a good progress report allows stakeholders to trust the team's decision. So every time I present a progress report, I should clearly justify what I have done and why I have done that. When I answer the question of why I have done that, the stakeholder will be able to understand the team's decision and to trust the team. The other forms of progress reporting are the vision statement set by the team, a weekly demonstration which the team involves everybody in, a release and iteration plans that you write out, the roadmap that you draw on your informative workspace, status email of completion of certain tasks. All of these are forms of progress report. One major form of progress reporting is called as the burn up chart. The burn up chart gives a bird's eye view of the entire project, and it shows the progress and predicts a completion date for the project. So every time you change your iteration plan or your release plan, you might have to create your own burn up chart and put it on the whiteboard. Now this is called as reporting. Apart from this, the management also has to understand certain other reports, certain numbers that can help them identify or track the progress of the team. So these numbers are informed to the management to help them understand the team better. So management report includes productivity of the team, how far we are staying on time and all that. Then the second aspect is the throughput. The throughput is the number of stories or features that the team can develop in a particular period of time. So within 1 month, how many number of stories is the team creating? That becomes the throughput of the team. And the number of defects that are generated can also indicate a very key value, because if the number of defects keep on increasing, then our time for completion of the project extends. So as we try to keep the number of defects low, we will be able to complete the project very soon. So the number of defects can also help us track down the progress of the team. And the most important form of management reporting is called as time usage. The time usage of every team member is an indication of how productive the team is. Now there are 5 different ways in which the time can be accounted for the employee or the team member. The first one is the unaccounted or non-project time, which the team member spends in conducting meetings, administration, other clerical work, and all of these can be put inside the unaccounted or non-project working hours. The second is an out of office hours, including vacation and sick leaves. The third category is the time spent by the team member in improving his skills. The online certification, trainings, research time, examinations the team member takes up. All of these go into the time contributed by the team member into improving their own personal skills. The fourth one is the planning. There are a lot of it. The team member every day spends almost 1 hour towards planning. One can be with their own team, one can be with another team, one can be with the stakeholder, one can be with the project manager. So when they keep communicating with a lot of people and towards planning, it takes some amount of time. This is accounted as the planning time. Then last is the most important form of time usage for a team member. It is the times they have spent on development of the code. Now, when we look into these forms of time, you can come up with a management report of this form. So, the ones that are given below are the time spent for developing. The above is called the planning hours, then improvement hours, out of office hours, and unaccounted time. If the unaccounted time is quite large, we might have to think a little bit. But for project managers and all people who are on the administrative line, unaccounted time will be very high. But for developers, it should be under control. So these are the types of reports that we can generate. The first form is the progress report. The second form is the management report. And the fourth keyword we will be looking in for today is a bug-free release. So when we try talking about iteration, at the end of every iteration, we are going to release a tangible outcome or give a deliverable to the client. Now, every time a deliverable is given to the client, it should go out without bugs or without defects. In Agile, we concentrate on a bug-free release. Rather than saying we have done an exhaustive testing and we are done with, and then allow some bugs to creep in, we are going to ensure a bug-free release when we deliver to the client. How do we do that? Is it possible? Now, in Agile, for development of this bug-free release, we use a 5-ingredient principle. So I have listed all the 5 ingredients that are important for a bug-free release. The first one is to write fewer bugs. The second one is elimination of bug breeding grounds. The third one is fixing up of bugs. Fourth one is test the process. And the fifth one is fixing up of the process. Now, when we talk of bugs, a bug is a defect or any behavior of your software that will unpleasantly surprise important stakeholders. We will confidently release without a dedicated testing phase in Agile. How is this possible? Is no bugs an ideal to strive for? Is it possible for us? Now, Agile teams can achieve dramatically low bug rates because of these 5-ingredient principle. Now, to achieve this, how do we achieve these nearly zero bugs? To achieve the zero bugs, we have to concentrate on 5 principles. As I said, the first principle is, so we have fewer bugs, eliminate bug breeding grounds, identify bugs quickly, test your process and fix your process. The first one is write fewer bugs. So during development itself, when we follow the test driven development, we write the test first and then start coding. This helps us to eliminate or to constrain the number of bugs as we write the code. So our writing process itself ensures that few bugs are written in the code. And when we look into the elimination of bug breeding grounds, a bug breeding ground is a piece of code that is usually vulnerable for producing a lot of errors. So if you look at that, even with test driven development, we will have some technical debt or a breeding bug site. So every time you touch that part of code, you will have a lot of errors. That's called as a bug breeding ground. Now this shows a very clear understanding of what a bug breeding ground looks like. So you have a lot of bugs and eggs put in one place. You touch that, you have errors in a lot of places. So you identify that spot and correct that spot so that when you write your code next time, it will not affect a lot of places. Then the next is to fix the bugs immediately. Every bug has a cost. Now, every time you have a bug, if you identify it soon, it is very easy to correct that bug. But if you identify it at a later stage, the cost of correcting the bug increases. So, if it is possible, fix the bug right away or immediately. The next is the test your process. There are certain places where the bug is not necessarily because of the code that you wrote, but it is because of the process that is followed in the organization. So I develop an attendance marking software for SPEC, and I think there is a bug or an error in the software. I try fixing the error. I am not able to fix because it is not a coding error, but the error comes because SPEC is following a wrong principle for marking the attendance. In that case, we will have to identify or test the process that is followed in SPEC before we fix the bug. That is called as testing your process. The next one is called fixing your process. So I fix the process at SPEC for marking attendance, and then I start writing the code. It helps me write the code without the bug. So if you are not able to fix the bug, test your process and then fix the process before you code. So these are the 5 ingredients in a bug-free release. So the 4 keywords we learnt for today are real customer involvement, iteration demo, reporting and bug-free release. An iteration, the real customer involvement divides or categorizes software into 5 different categories, and the iteration demo happens every 2 weeks in a development, and it demonstrates the development during the iteration and helps us plan for the next iteration. And reporting, we have seen 2 types of report, progress reports and management reports. And the last one is bug-free release, which has 5 ingredients. With this, I am closing for today's session. We will see more keywords in the next session. This is Dr. Diana signing off. Thank you.